Well, Minorcan Navy, and has been 1 year since the Francis Scott Key Bridge was struck by the container ship, box ship Dali, and collapsed. And the bridge has still not been replaced. It's still, the process is very, seems like it's slow to get moving for the new construction. They have laid out the plans. We kind of showed you guys here on the channel what they're wanting to do there. But the NTSB has put out about a week ago, 5 days ago, an updated report about the Francis Scott Key Bridge. And more importantly, here we are a year later, and they've come out with some recommendations. Guys, I'm not making this up. They come out with some recommendations to some 68 bridges across the country that they need to assess, do a vulnerability assessment of these structures right away, and look at what sort of protective measures that could be implemented, along with input from the Coast Guard and maybe some other agencies there to prevent this from happening. Is it just me, or I certainly, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, guys. But if I owned a bridge and I watched that bridge collapse after a ship struck one of the piers, checking my own bridge for its vulnerability would have been at the top of my list that day. It's amazing to me how government moves sometimes. But they've come out and said, and I'll put a link up here to this press conference that they had, and you're going to hear there's a lot of terms in there: vulnerability assessments, risk analysis. Those are a lot of terms you're going to hear in the thing, and it certainly is an eye-opening thing to me as a person that travels over bridges a lot. That now we're getting to the point that we really ought to start looking at these bridges for impacts that could possibly help happen from vessel traffic. I don't know. They did their own assessment and they went into a little bit of detail of this about the Francis Scott Key Bridge, about the vulnerability of the bridge of a strike, and they even broke down into each individual pier, I guess, what it was, the vulnerability that it might sustain an event. Well, again, I'm not the guy that's really super smart on this thing, but I can tell you what the vulnerability assessment of the Francis Scott Key Bridge for an impact, it's 100%. And maybe, do you use that as a benchmark? No, you don't use that as a benchmark. But you look at a bridge, and how it's constructed, understand where the channel is and where the deep water is, and what vessels can get up to those support structures and clip them and cause a major catastrophe, and address them, whether that's through putting in more dolphins, or extending out the support island, if you will, through maybe rocks or something. Replace the bridge if that's what you got to do to keep somebody from losing their life. Guys, let's not have these kind of problems. And man, it's great to have a little foresight and look maybe down the road and see these problems that could potentially be there, and head them off before the bridge falls, and before you have big traffic issues and problems with maintaining the economic stability of the port that would be impacted. It seems like that would not be a very difficult process to have already had the implementation there, and corrective measures actively taking place right now. Maybe I'm just way off on that. And of course, this is just a little rant. You guys were with me when we were up there and watching the process to get the channel opened back up. And every day that I went there, it was always in my mind this was completely preventable, even with no bridge protection. If somebody would have just said, "Hey, you need to have tugboats on every one of these ships that comes through this bridge until it gets past it," it's not end of it. It's over with. This never happens. Anyhow, it is the 1 year anniversary of the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, the Key Bridge in Baltimore, and just some words we had, some thoughts we had. Again, uh, the NTSB, if you haven't seen the press conference that they did, it's about 5 days ago, leading up to the anniversary of the bridge. Take a look at it. It's a little bit frightening that they have identified 68 bridges that, we probably really ought to take a look at these things. You think? All right, guys. Hey, that's all I got for today. Again, I still think about the folks there that lost their lives, and that's probably something that will never leave me. I'm thinking about today, especially those folks today, and I think that's the big picture here. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for the support, and as always, we want to say, hey, you guys be safe out there.